Hi, everybody. This is Al Spath, your Poker Insider, and today we got a special Sunday conversation with poker pro and author Donna Blevins from down in Inverness, Florida. Hi, Donna. You on the air?
I sure am. What a great way to spend Sunday morning, Al.
Well, that's great. Donna and I met several years ago. I wasn't part of her career when she first started out, but I've become a part of her legacy here in the last couple of years as we work together on webinars. We work together a little over on Poker School Online. And she's got a new book coming out, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm like all excited to hear all about it. And we're going to get to that and a lot more today. But first off, I'd like to say that Donna is a mindset coach. And last week I was talking to Donna, and she was up in New York, and she told me an interesting story about a gentleman she met online. I think it was maybe it was at the train station, or I don't know. But Donna, tell us what that little I guess example you showed the individual about what a mindset coach does.
Thank you. That's nice to share that. It was probably one of the most quick ways to get feedback from people I did not know, like ships passing in the night. Oh, no, not the night. Whoops, no, not that. we,
So
we actually met in the lobby of the hotel, and we were waiting where you check your luggage with the what do they call them today? Sky cap? No, that's Sky Cap. Whatever they call them today, where you check
bellhop.
your bell. That's it, bellhop. And he was tall and very handsome man. He was in his 40s, and he had these furrowed brows, and we were just standing there. There were several people in line, and I turned around and I said, "Good morning." And he spoke with the most interesting, excuse me, French accent. And I said, "Are you from France?" And he said, "Well, yes, I'm from Paris." And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Is that why you look like you're struggling because of what's happened in Paris?" And he said, "No." He said, "It's my girlfriend." And he went on. It was like he had just had a bad beat at the poker table. He started in on this dreadful experience. He was picking her up at the airport. He was throwing her away, getting her to picking up at the hotel, taking her to the airport. She was going to get out of his life. And I said, "Would you like to mind shift?" And he stopped dead in his tracks, and he looked straight at me. He was standing there like with his head hanging. And like I said, he was a very handsome man, very dapper. And all of a sudden, he looked straight at my face, like somebody's holding a hand. When you look straight into someone's eyes, you get a feel for them when they're at the poker table.
Hmm.
And he looked straight at me and he said, "Yes, please. I need to shift my mindset." And I said, "You have 3 minutes. We'll stand here over to the side and I'll walk you through it." And he said, "Yes, please." And I went, "Okay." So I walked him through my signature mind shift exercise, which is called, isn't that interesting? And I've actually started doing something a bit different, which is asking people to rate where they are. Think about pain. When you zero, there's none, and when you're 10, you're ready. Take me to the ER, and you need to rate it before you start, and then rate it when you finish. You need to know how well it's working, and all of a sudden, I realized that's what I had been missing in sharing this with people. So I asked him where he was, and he looked at me and he said 12. I said, "Okay." So let's get going. I walked him through it. He did exactly what I asked him to do. You say a couple of things out loud. He never has to tell me what he's thinking or any of those images that I ask you to put up in your mind's eye. And when we finished, I said, "Now rate where you are." And he looked at me, and it was like a child who had just walked in to see the most amazing thing under the Christmas tree. He said, "I'm at 3."
Smile on his face.
Ah, just astonishing. He had settled. He had released a lot of this anger and frustration. And she texted him, and he texted back without being, tense and, taking your finger and going really fast when you're texting. It was really great reinforcement that what I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing, and it does help people when they shift their mindset instantly. And that was one of the things that I learned at the poker table. It's that when I get upset, it's, I was told meditation really helps. Well, yeah, you're in the middle of a hand and it's a really critical hand, and you're all of a sudden tilted. What are you going to do? Say, oh, excuse me, I'm going to get up from the table and go meditate for half an hour? Well, you can't do that. You need to be able to shift your mindset in a few moments, or take a minute to do it. And that's what I learned how to do, and that's what I share with my coaching clients.
That's great. I love that story, and I want to know, and the folks that are listening today, they probably want to know this too. If you weren't playing poker, if you didn't have a career in poker, what would you be doing this career or this lifetime of yours?
If I weren't playing poker, what would I be doing?
Yeah, where would you be?
I think I would be exactly where I am, because what I do doesn't require a framework of poker, because I've been mind shifting myself for over 50 years. Yeah, grab onto that. And I've been helping people mind shift for at least 35 years in all areas that I've been working with. My husband and I had a real estate company, and we managed agents and other brokers. And I was in advertising, marketing to people, going and like selling advertising, bringing people into the magazine, and all of that. Everything that I did had to do with mind shifting. I just didn't have the words at the time. I just didn't have I didn't have the word mind shifting. I was doing it without knowing that's exactly what I was doing. I've been reading people certain ways, and reading micro expressions that I actually got the words for them from the poker industry, and then I realized I'd been using micro expression in sales. So where would I be? Doing exactly what I'm doing now, helping people realize that they are the controller. They have a controller inside of them of how they perceive what's happening in their life. Even when things are happening awful around you, how you look at it, how you feel about it, how you think about it is what creates your own reality, because we are our own reality creator.
Very good. That leads me right into the subject I want to talk about before we get into more on mind shifting and books and things. Tell everybody about what you're doing over with the VA and the trauma victims that are coming in that have I guess it's head injuries. And tell them in your words who you're dealing with and how you're introducing poker to them.
Well, first of all, I want to say that if I start crying, then sometimes it happens even when I talk about it, because when I walk into the room, here I go, excuse me, when I walk into the room, I do this once a month with the VA, at the VA hospital in Tampa, Florida. I work at the polytrauma division, for people that have experienced traumatic brain injury, and polytrauma then means other things. They may be they may be an amputee, or they may have had strokes. Many of them have had strokes. The primary, what I primarily do is we do an hour and a half session. And think of it as a mini tournament, a one table mini tournament. And I work at what's called the transition unit. It startled me when I first saw that, because I had known transition as being the time from life to death. But in actuality, this is their transition from being a full-time resident of the hospital because of the injury. They're in this transition unit where they then step into their ability to be independent and then live on their own and take care of themselves. What happens is, I first started teaching them how to play poker by giving a lesson, and that didn't work, because I was using some slides and saying, this is what you do, and this is what you do. And remember, we have people that have traumatic brain injury, and and their attention span is very short oftentimes. So what I said was, wow, what we need to do is to do a hands-on, because people actually learn everything faster by doing it. The word is experiential. Right now, being active, touching it, feeling
Mm-hmm.
it. I thought, well, that's why poker's so good, because it's something you actually do. You touch the cards. Live poker is great because you actually have your hands on the cards. You can see the people. Online poker is wonderful too, but we'll set that aside just a minute. I'm talking about in
Yeah, we don't
person,
want to put
live.
that down.
No, 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 no. I'm not putting it down. No, I'm the Florida State Director for Poker Players Alliance,
There you go.
promoting to get online poker regulated by the state. So I am 100% for that. I'm just speaking about the
Sure.
the vitality of engaging with people in person, and how that's really important. And I think that's important for everyone who plays poker. Well, the reason that it works with what I actually do during the sessions with the traumatic brain injury veterans, first of all, I thank them for their service when I come in, because I rarely have the same people over and over, fortunately, because they're transitioning through this unit. And what I decided to do when I realized you can't just stand there and talk about poker, you had to do something, is I integrate about 3 simple mind shift exercises within the game. Rather than saying, I'm going to teach you this, I'll just
Right.
say, this is what I'd like for you to do. And it has to do with settling and focusing on on your hand. Memory happens to be an issue, so I created a technique for helping them remember their cards, and it's one of the things that I want poker players to do. And I think you remember when I used to say, it was the 4-second rule. I wanted you to look at your cards for 4 seconds, regardless of what they are, so you didn't give away tells. When people saw you fleetingly look at aces, snap them down, or a 7 deuce, screw that, I'll throw that away. So you wanted to be consistent every time. And then I realized I changed it to, you're going to love this, live poker room suits are not going to like this much. And I call it the 6-second rule now, because I want you to cover your cards, protect your cards, and look at your cards for 6 seconds by simply saying what they are 3 times. And if you do that, that takes about 6 seconds to do it, what the card is and its suit. And just doing that with the traumatic brain injury has been rewarding, because what it does is it helps them to focus outside of themselves. Because you can imagine, if you're dealing with traumatic brain injury and you've been a virulent warrior and you've been in combat, and all of a sudden you're damaged, what are you going to feel about yourself? You're going to feel less than, you're going to feel worthless, and that was one of the things that I kept experiencing. So what I wanted to do was to help them settle into just being in the moment, and working on a particular skill like memory, or we're going to take something to do with a little bit of math. And so we would deal with that. And what it did was it pulled them out of themselves, focusing on something around them. And one of the other things I wanted them to do was actually settle when they got their cards, wait to look at them until it was their turn to act, and just settle there in their seat comfortably, head up, shoulders back, relaxed, and just being aware of how the other people looked at their cards. That alone has been a great step.
And the feedback from the staff at the hospital, at the traumatic unit, or the patients themselves, are they delighted? Are they overjoyed? I anticipate your arrival.
It's been astonishing. It brings me to tears, and regardless of what is on my plate with family, health care, or whatever I'm doing, I'm clearing a day for them. Now, mind you, it's an hour and a half session, but I'm 2 hours away from there. So whatever I do that, it's a day, because the response is phenomenal. It, I have passed veterans in the hallway, and they'll say, Coach, great to see you. When are we doing a new session? And I got a recognition award from the Veterans Administration 2 years ago, a wooden plaque that was, where they take laser and they write things on it. And it's been, I need to take a picture of that and post it someplace. So I'm going to do that.
Well, I mean, that is. Listen, I've been in the military. I was in the military for 24 years, and let me thank you for your service to our veterans coming back, because our country has kind of let them down as to their health care, and with you and the community stepping up like that, it really makes a difference. I know it's only at one hospital and it's only an hour and a half, but that hour and a half is an hour and a half that they had nothing to fill and nothing to advance themselves. And so I appreciate it. And from the folks that are listening here at Heartbeat Poker, from Full Flush Poker, and everybody else that listens to this up on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, thank you, Donna. We really appreciate that. And I wanted you to tell them a little bit about that, but I know it would bring you to tears. But we're going to jump off of that. But after I continue on with this conversation, we're going to get a little bit more happy, okay?
Oh,
So
sure.
we're
Happy,
going to
happy.
return to happy time. Who was your role model in the poker world?
Who was my role model in the poker world? My role model. I have to say it's my husband. I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but
No, no. I want to know. I want to know who's your role model. I just, who inspired you? Who set out, laid down some tracks for you to follow? Anybody that does? Just
it has to be the initial role model and the one who's been my role model for nearly 20 years in poker.
right.
It has to be my husband, Gregory Weitzel, because he'd always talked about poker and he loved poker, but when he came to Florida, there wasn't any poker in the 80s, and when poker, when the Seminole Indian casinos started putting poker in their bingo halls
Right.
in 1996, and we had this real estate company where I was virtually killing myself. But by the way, if it weren't if I wasn't into poker, I'd be dead now because of the stress. Literally, I would never have survived it because I was so fractured and pulled into the struggle of what was going on in business that I was not paying attention to myself. Even though I'd been mind shifting for many years, I had been pulled out of what I knew how to do. So he was able to teach me how to play poker. I actually went through, my choice, dealt out 50,000 hands on the kitchen table before I would ever sit down at a poker table, because I wanted to see, being in sales and being a reader of people and being a marketer, I wanted to really see what the cards were doing. And we dealt out 50,000 hands up so I could see the cards and get a feel for it. It doesn't take long to do, by the way. It sounds like it's dreadful, but it doesn't take long to do. You can do it in about a week easily without rushing. And so he was a great role model for me because he was able to help me transition what I did very well in our business, which was sales and working with people, how to translate that and transition that into poker. So that he was the primary role model, has been the primary role model for me. If I look then at poker pros,
Mm-hmm.
who has been a role model, I'm always about looking for wisdom. Excuse me. And I first wanted to know about Doyle Brunson. I absolutely wanted to know about the godfather of poker. He was one of the first people that I actually met, the first pros that I actually met at in a tournament in Tunica, Mississippi at the Horseshoe in 1999, 1998. And another role model, gosh, even as angry as we are about, a lot of people are today with Chris Ferguson
Mm-hmm.
because of Full Tilt. Chris
Right.
Ferguson was absolutely a great role model for me because of the fact that I watched the way he sat at the poker table, regardless of what his hand was. He was consistent. He was able to be consistent. You look at pictures of him on the internet, and you will see this same facial expression, so consistent. That was a great role model for me.
And
Who
how
else
about
was?
on the ladies' side of the house? from you got the Linda Johnsons out there, and you have several other people. Was it Susie Isaacs? Who out there were you close to on the ladies' side of the house that you got to talk to differently maybe than you would talk to a gentleman at the table? You could tell somebody of your own gender, like, these guys are distracted and we have to use that as a weapon.
Oh, wear your clothes matter. Anyway,
Yeah.
the kind of top you have on. Actually, interestingly enough, you just tagged both of them, because Susie Isaacs was actually, I read her first book, and I loved that. It was 1998 or 99. I read her first book, and I loved that. It was open and sharing, and it really helped me with my game. Linda Johnson is absolute. She's the first lady of poker, and that's her on Twitter. She's First Lady Poker, I think, is how her Twitter handle is. I absolutely follow her. And my two dearest friends are Linda Johnson and Jan Fisher. They've been in business for, gosh, probably 35 years, and they have developed the strongest poker crews, card player cruises, and I absolutely love those. So, as far as women, it's got to be, Susie Isaacs is at the top of the list. Linda Johnson, Jen Fisher, Marcia
Wagner.
Wagner. I always have a hard time with her last
Wagner.
name.
Wagner.
Wag,
Yeah, Wagner.
Wagner. She's amazing, from Australia, lives in Las Vegas. She's right at the top of the list. Lupe Soto,
Lips.
with Lips Ladies International Poker
She used
Series.
to be my partner. We owned Victory Poker, scan over on Doyle Brunson's site. Um, Her and Xander, from a guy from Boise, Idaho, and we ran a skin there for several years, and then we sold it. As a matter of fact, we sold Victory Poker, the skin name, to Antonio Esfandieri about 2 years ago, and then he was going to start the Victory Poker. He did, and then the government came down again on the cashiers and everything, so he just pulled it, and he said he'd wait till everything cleared up. But he loved the name Victory Poker, which is a
Sure.
positive name, and I understand that. So it belongs to him right now. But Susie Isaac, funny you should say that. She's the one that introduced me to June Field at Poker Digest, and that's another name that brings up in your memories, I know.
Oh
But
God! Again, why did I leave her off the list? I mean,
yeah, well,
when I was wanting something for beginners, when I first started learning how to play in 1996, I would kept saying, "But Gregory, there's nothing for beginners." As a matter of fact, Card Player magazine was the only publication that existed at the time, the only publication that existed, and we had a subscription to it, and I would read it, and I loved the magazine, but frankly, so much of it was over my head because I didn't have the language, and I didn't know the poker vocabulary, and the wording, the uh, initials for things was very disturbing. And so I actually, um, my husband said, "Look, you've got to write it. You absolutely have to write it." I said, "What do you mean write it?" He said, "Write a column." So I actually was preparing to send a letter, a query letter, to Card Player, the magazine,
right,
to Linda Johnson, and my husband actually brought home a copy of the very first copy of Poker Digest, which was in the fall of 1998,
right.
with Scotty Wynn on the cover. And I read it. It was much smaller, and the paper wasn't very good on the inside. But when I read June Field's editorial, it was touching. It was very transparent, and I said, I think I'd rather be in a smaller pond than in the big pond, the big ocean with Card Player magazine. I love it, still do today. And I said, maybe I'm going to send the letter to them. And so I sent the letter, forgot about it. Took me 2 weeks to write this letter, by the way, a page and a half letter and a half-page bio. That's what the query letters are. And my husband took me for the first time to Tunica, Mississippi for Horseshoe, and I called in for messages. And the message said it was from Poker Digest. We've accepted your column, because I wanted to call it Beginner's Corner. and we've printed your first your letter as the first article. Please send 6 more, and it was from June Field.
And I'm opening page 14 of Poker Digest in 2001. The Pros and Cons of Home and Casino Poker, Part 1 by Miss Donna Blevins. I'm looking at it right now because that was the first issue that I had an article in Poker Digest, and June Fields also requested 6 more from me. And,
Isn't that wonderful?
and I had the back page on her, On the River, it was called by me. It was Cry Me a River, it was 7-card stud journey. And on the front cover is Mortensen, Carlos Mortensen, who captured the World Series of Poker that year. So, we have roots that intertwine, and 6 degrees of separation brings us back together again once more here today on the radio. And we know the Alan Schoonmaker, and we know the Lou Kriegers, and we know quite a few people in the industry, but I don't know of many that are more hardworking than you, Donna, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day today, a Sunday, to speak with everybody. And anybody that has a question, just put it up there in chat, and we'll both see it, and we'll respond to that. But let's get back to mind shifting here and
Yes.
talk about the components of mind shifting as I understand it. And please, you're the expert. Please correct me, because I asked people, and I had my own understanding. It involves focus, anxieties, tilt, both regular tilt and reverse tilt, and there was one more. The handling of downswings and things like that. Tell me what other components I've missed, and how that fits in there. The handling of downswings at the table and stuff like that. Where does that fall under?
That's a really good question, Al. I think if you look inside yourself and think about how your mind jumps around like an out of control monkey. Have you ever experienced that?
Yes. Afraid so.
Yeah, I think if you think about where it goes and what it does, it's that out of control monkey inside your mind that is the primary source. But how does it manifest? Is it anxiety? Is it fear? Fear, by the way, is one of our biggest handicaps in our life, and certainly at the poker table, because a lot of underlying issues, emotional issues, manifest in the way of fear. Things like feeling worthless. People, all these things that are negative come out in our issues with our mindset. Look at Mike the Mouth.
Yes.
And how erratic he was and how out of focus he was. Gosh, back in 2007, I'm thinking, was the year that he was so fractured, and he was kind of off the radar for a while. And when he came back, he was settled, and he talked about doing yoga and doing meditation. Well, let me tell you my biggest challenge with mind shifting, and this is the biggest challenge that I believe most people have, is that they say, well, all you need to do is meditate. Well, crap, I get a knee jerk when somebody says go meditate, because frankly, I don't have the time to become a monk and meditate so long that it settles my mind. So I wanted to figure out how to do that swiftly. And I think that's what my coaching clients, that's what they brought up, because when I started coaching poker in the mid-20s, God, listen to that, in the mid-2000s, I was teaching about, how to play the cards and how to do strategy. And I figured, we'd talk about handling your mindset, but predominantly over time, the poker players would come back and say, well, I can deal with the cards. That's okay. It's this other stuff. What is it? The focus on what people are focusing on, the biggest challenge that poker players have, I believe, the biggest, well, focusing on their bad beats and thinking about everything that's gone wrong. That is is one of the biggest problems, because then they focus on that, they create that energy, they focus on that happening, they create more of the same. What we focus on, we create. That comes under a term that is used with the law of attraction, but that's what happens with our life, because we have an electromagnetic field around our body, and how we resonate, we attract. It's a fact. And oh, that was a nice rhyme, wasn't it? And uh, when people are focusing on how they're always being beaten by somebody else. I mean, how many times have you heard people talk about being bad beats, and then they get more of them? They talk about them more. They focus on them. I stay out of most of the poker forums because people are always complaining. That's one of the biggest challenges that people have in poker, because they look at the things that have gone wrong. I mean, I was on a radio show a few years ago, and I said, I'll do this with one stipulation, and that is that I coach someone I do not know on the spot, extemporaneously, live on air. And that was what I did for a couple of years with several different stations. I wanted to show people how quickly you can shift your mindset openly. And one woman kept talking about how all she ever did was lose with kings on online poker, and she took an image every time she lost with kings. She said, I always, always, always lose with kings. And she said, here, I've got all these images I lost X number of times. And I thought about it for a minute. I said, okay, have you ever won? And she said, well, sure. And I said, how many images do you have of winning with kings? And she stopped and she said, well, none. So what she was imprinting on her subconscious is to lose with kings, focusing on that. When you focus on winning, when you focus on losing, you lose more often. So it's where we focus. You know, you're asking for what is the singular point of it. It's where we focus, where our monkey mind takes us, that lizard mind, that part of our mind that is part of our genetics. It's what we focus on. That's what the mind shifting is about. It doesn't matter if it manifests as anxiety, tilt, handling a downswing, leaking your bankroll. Oh my God, not giving yourself permission to fold. Lord have mercy. Is that one of a huge problem with poker players? Could say the Lord's name on Sunday, huh? That's
You know, Phil Helmuth, he's been posting a lot on Twitter and other places, and he always saying positivity, positivity. Now, positive poker is what the game's about. You have to have a mindset. I'm going to use your word. If some people have been watching my videos and they've seen me take a hit in a tournament or a hit at the cash game, you hear me tell you right then and there, that's just one hand of thousands of hands. I got to get back in it. I've got to target this other person over here that has the money to get me back to even. I don't say I'm going to target a person and I'm going to go from where I took a hit to this big plus amount of money, because that's unrealistic. You have to set a goal. Get back to even, then start your climb up. Don't set goals that you can't reach easily, because then you're going to set yourself up to failure. You got to do it in increments. There was a gentleman that came to me this week. I won't mention his name, but he wanted to move up in limits to from 50. He's already up to 50 cent one. He's made that commitment, and now he wants to move into 1-2 because he wants to make poker more of his income stream. And I told him what I would do is go up and watch the 1-2 game for a half an hour, 45 minutes every day. Just get a feel for who's playing and how they're playing. And then after you've maybe played your 50 cent $1 game, go on up and sit for a while, and sit for 20 minutes the first time. Get the feel of it. Play kind of tight. Play a little nitty. Don't do anything silly, and see how it feels. Get adjusted to it. Find out that it's not something to be afraid of, because if you bring the fear with you of losing, or the fear that you're overmatched, you're going to have strikes against you. And then come back down. Then maybe the next time go up in 30 minutes, and maybe the next time 40 minutes, depending on how you're doing. If it's kind of rough up there, then spend more time back down at the 50 cent one where you feel in control. Build that bankroll up, then go back and start all over again, with 20 minutes or 30 minutes till you get comfortable doing an hour session, and see how you do. Well, I peeked in on him last night because he was up there and he had sat down for, I think, the first time at the 1-2. And I watched maybe 3 to 8 minutes, somewhere in that range. And, I got a note from you this morning. Not bad, $128. It wasn't bad. Played for about an hour. Did okay. Held my own. A lot to learn, but I'm feeling good about it. So, I'm proud of his journey, and I'm proud of all the students that I teach and coach, as you are with all the people that you work with. And speaking of that, when is your next webinar?
Gosh, that's a good question. Maybe I ought to decide when that's going to be, because I've actually put a bit of my coaching and on hold simply because of the fact that I needed to focus on finishing Mind Shift on Demand, the book Mind Shift on Demand, because I was being distracted, and I said, look, I need some time to focus on this, because my coaching clients kept saying, look, you've been writing this for a couple of years. Please, we want to see this in print. We want to see each one of the mind shift exercises detailed out so that we can truly internalize them. It took me a long time to teach people how to engage your energetic radar. I'd say, well, that's all you have to do. And they'd go, huh? What the hell do you mean? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'm going, okay, let's see. I've got to change the words about that. How do I explain that? So I had to create a process and walk them through it so that actually establish and understand what energetic radar meant. It's like, gosh, when you're on a sidewalk and you're walking in some direction and you sometimes feel like there's something threatening behind you. Have you ever felt that?
Sure.
Okay. We do, if you don't hear a sound, we can actually feel something energetically. And that has to do with engaging your energetic radar about how it's not only around you, but it's how your mind is shifting to the wrong place. So I kept sharing that. So what I had to do in order to do that is I had to simplify my life so that I could say, okay, I'm going to put the coaching on hold for a very short period of time, and even my speaking on hold, because I said, okay, after October, in November, December, I'm going to focus specifically on finishing the book. The book's scheduled to be about, books today are much shorter. On Kindle, they're much shorter, but this is going to be a print book. I wanted to give at least a dozen mind shift exercise, and we're looking at about 40,000 words. I'm at 27,000 right now, and I've actually found a local editor. I wanted an editor close that I could really look into her face or his face. It didn't matter. I wanted to have somebody to really work with me, to be a mirror, kind of a mindset mirror about how does this sound to you. And I actually wanted to find someone that was not a poker player, because I wanted to focus on words that you don't have to know about poker to be able to use this in any part of your life. And that's what I wanted it to be. So that's what it's on hold, temporary hold. So webinar, I'm probably looking at the middle of January. That's my hope. But if anyone wants to see, hear what I do with mind shifting, all you have to do is to go to my Twitter, Big Girl Poker. Voila, Big Girl Poker is my Twitter handle, and the post that's at the very top, the one that's pinned there at the top, if you click through that, it'll take you to an opt-in page where you can actually get a replay of a webinar about mind shifting. And it's had some amazing response. I actually had a professional poker player who had actually worked with Poker Stars for quite a few years, emailed me this last fall, because I did this, I believe, in August, and he watched a replay of it, and he emailed me, and the email just dusted me, because he said, you literally saved my life. And I said, what? He was focusing on things that were really destroying him, and he was able to shift away from that. So let's look at the middle part of January, after the book is launched.
That sounds good. But now I can't follow up on it. You mentioned Twitter. Tell me what somebody asked you about if you were going to Twitch, and what did you think they meant? Come on, share that story with everybody.
Oh God, yeah, his name again. Okay, somebody said, well, are you going to Twitch? And I said, what do you mean Twitch? You know, you're just moving your butt. I thought what they were meaning twerk. When you, the way you dance when you twerk and you just turn around and you're doing your butt back and forth. Anyway, I didn't know what Twitch was until I finally somebody laughed at me. They were laughing out loud on Twitter, and they said no, 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 no.
That is
So
really
actually, I have a Twitch account, but I've not done anything on it because it has a little bit of learning curve. Not that much, but a little bit of learning curve, and I didn't want to get focused on it. But I'm gonna start twitching.
okay.
I'll start twitching some in
Okay.
January.
Well, you're always welcome here at Heartbeat Poker, and I know the owner myself, Drush. He's looking for people. So if you want to get started somewhere and work out the kinks and be a broadcaster here, just let me know, and I'll set you up with a conversation with him. Let's take a couple of questions here from the forum. This first one up here is from Noodle the River, and he says, "Hello, Ms. Donna. Do you feel that downswings and the impact you're talking about is not discussed in the open enough, especially from highly known players? I think the new players and younger players have experienced expectations that downswings are only things that happen to bad players, so they don't ask for help or moral support when it's happening."
Well, I think that's a really good question, Noodle the River. I think that's a good question. I feel what I believe the question is should professionals acknowledge that there are downswings? Yes, yes, and they do, but I believe it's the way people talk about downswings. They focus on the darkness of it without looking for the situation. We want to look back at what's happened and we want to dissect it without beating ourselves up about it. You want to say, okay, what happened? In fact, I used to use what people call feedback. I mean, let's do let's after an event, like if you're doing let's say in sales, what you want to do is you want to look back at it and debrief it. That's the word I was looking for, like debriefing. And a lot of people don't like that term debriefing because it has some negative terms from government. And I started thinking about what are we going to call that, and I actually now call it an after-action review. And interestingly enough, Al, I found out that the military uses that too.
Absolutely.
After-action review and looking back at what just happened or an event, a situation, a battle, and looking at what worked and what they look at what did not work and what were the mistakes. I would rather look at it differently, but still dissect it rather than just focus on all the crap. I want to first look at, and I want you to look at your game. I want you to look at your game and I want you to say, what did I do correctly? And you're thinking, well, that's a stupid thing because I really screwed up. It's not stupid because what it's doing is it's shifting your mindset to the positive without being fluff. You say, what did I do correctly? Okay. Now, rather than saying, what did I do wrong? I want you to look at that differently. What might I have done differently? What might I have done differently? Because maybe you didn't screw up so much at all. You just lost a really big hand. Who knows? And then you dissect it and you look for the lessons. And then you take that information and you get on with it. What might I do differently? What can I do in the future to be more effective? And that's how you look at your game. I believe that poker players so oftentimes focus on just the darkness and they create more of the darkness without figuring out how to fix it, without dissecting it openly, without guilt, without shame, without blame. And that's what you have to do to learn lessons rather than beating yourself up. Crap, when I busted out of the 2007 World Series of Poker Main Event Championship as the top fourth woman, I mean, there were 6,400 players, and I got that far. Well, what did I do for 2 weeks after that? Crap, I was a bitch. My husband was devastated because I was just a hurricane to be around. I was so overwhelmed with it that I didn't go through what I knew I needed to do. Looking back, I go, whoa, okay, I could do that better today. And now when I I feel virtually the same when I finish a game, whether I'm up a lot or down a lot. I try to stay in that neutral place where now I can look back and see what really went well and what I might change in the future, rather than being either terribly depressed or overly happy. I think that neutral place is where you can grow more and grow stronger, grow faster.
Very
Did
good.
I answer that okay?
I think so. He talked about some downswings too. The expectations that downswings are only things that happen to bad players. They happen to everybody. But then Adam comes right along here and follows up and he says, "So what do you suggest for real-time tilt control? Take a walk. Tell yourself it's one hand. The deeper you run, the more important one hand is. So what do you suggest and how do you handle it, Donna? What do you tell your clients to do?"
Well, thanks, Adam. And one of the things that I tell them, there's a particular quick mind shift exercise that you can do if you've absolutely taken a hit and you've got wounds all over you, and if if you have the ability to really step away from the table for just a few moments, and it only takes a few moments, is I want you to, in fact, do with me right now. Put your feet flat on the floor. Do that right now. Al, put your feet flat on
My
the
feet
floor.
are down.
Okay. Put your hands on either side of the chair. Okay, right beside of your thighs. Okay, so that your palms are on that. You feel how you're grounded there.
I know.
Now, I want you to push up and get your butt out of the seat and walk away.
Oh, but I'm twerking as I'm doing it. I'm glad I'm not on camera.
And you're attached to with your headset, and I know I am too. But it's kind of a funny thing to give you a laugh, because what you can do is literally step away from the table. One of the things that one of my coaching clients who won her first tournament, she actually had blown a previous hand. I mean, in the middle of the tournament, she had blown a hand. She had stayed in a hand too long. When you really know you're beaten before you fold, and you're just staying there because you feel like you've got so much invested.
Nah, we've never experienced that, Don. Never.
Well, finally, she was able to say, "Okay, just let it go." And she was sitting there beating herself up, and she did that. Get your butt up. Butt up is what I call it. Butt up. And she actually, she said, "Okay, I'm going to be gone for an orbit. What is it going to cost me?" She said, "Okay, the time is worth that." So she got up and she actually walked outside, hugged a tree, did whatever she can do, went back into the restroom, and there were a couple of handicap stalls, and one of the reasons you can do the mind shift exercises in a handicap stall because you need a little space. And there were a couple free, so she wasn't going to interfere with someone who needed them. And go in there and actually do some mind shift exercises, which actually engages your body. One of the most important things about the mind shifting that I do is that it interconnects the mind-body connection, because the more subtle body movements that you do in a very particular way when you're mind shifting helps you to shift your mindset, because it occupies your mind. The more physicality that you incorporate in mind shifting, the more your mind shifts, because it's focused on that rather than focusing on moving. It's if you're thinking, I'm going to sit up straight, I'm going to breathe, my face is going to be a certain way, my shoulders are going to be down, my hands are going to be here. Just by thinking about that, all of a sudden your mind's occupied doing the physicality of it, rather than being anchored in the mire and the crap that you're in.
How about that 2007 World Series of Poker? You talked about that, and you talked about afterwards and everything. But were there any super memories from that, or any other WSOP, or any other major event anywhere in the country that just ring out to you? That maybe you won, or maybe you played against a certain person and you won a certain hand that was just something that you'll cherish, something that you always think back on?
Thank you for asking that, Al. There's actually one particular hand that I remember with a pro beside of me. He's not a well-known, high-profile pro today, but I had known him for quite a few years, seen him at quite a few tournaments, and I was very thrilled to see him, but not so thrilled that he was to my left, because I was way too tight. And this was the point in the tournament where I realized I had gotten so attached in the beginning to allowing people, trying to be too tight and people pushing me around. I just got really sucked into that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that particular, uh, it was that particular hand that helped. It was, I had raised pre-flop, and he raised back, and there was a red board that came out with, I believe it was hearts, with an ace on it. And I bet he raised me, and I raised back really, really strong. I didn't have anything. I just said, I have to take a stand. And he stopped. And I guess he thought, well, if she's been such a pussy, I guess I'll lay this down. And he tossed in a pair of black queens. And at that point, I realized that I just really had to step out of being a sissy, which is what I was doing. I was being weak and pushed around. And I was not as experienced in the bigger games, even though I had already played another $10,000 event that I had won my way into up at Foxwoods, and actually won my entry into it, and finished in the money then, which was really significant. I went from $1,000 buy-in, won my $10,000 entry, and I cashed for $11,000. So that was my first win a couple of years before that. So, but I was still too tight. I didn't have enough experience at the table.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a very significant hand because it helped me to open up my game. That particular hand in the middle of the main event.
And I know you don't have much time now. Do you still get up to the casino there, whether it be the racetrack or whatever, is it Indian casinos in Florida?
Yes, the Seminoles are
Seminoles.
they've got 6 Seminole casinos. There's one Miccosukee casino down in Miami, but there's the Paramutuals, the horse tracks, and the Greyhound racing kennels. They're wonderful, and there's actually a High Fonton. Is that what you call it, Fonton? There's their biggest draw is their poker table. That's an hour away. The others are the minimum of an hour and a half away. So I have been away from the table for a couple of months, and I will stay away from the table until the mid part of January. So I'm taking a sabbatical.
That's good. Hudson says, and Hudson's one of our servicemen stationed down in Lower Alabama. Huddy is, thank you for your service. He says the Hard Rock, Donna, on Broward.
Oh, yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
these guys, they know their ins and outs of the poker room, don't they? They even know the addresses for the GPS.
Yeah, yeah. There's 2 Hard Rocks in Seminole Hard Rocks. There's one in Tampa on the Orient, and Broward is one, I believe it's probably in Fort Lauderdale. Hollywood.
Yeah, I have one last question for you, unless anybody else has one in the chat there. How about talking about quitting early when you're up? What's the mindset that someone should have when they go to a casino and they're playing cash, obviously, because in a tournament you can't just get up from that. So if you're up, is quitting early something that they should focus on before they get there, while they're there, when they get ahead? When does that creep into the mind, and how do they handle that?
It depends on how rested
Mm-hmm.
and how they feel and how strong they are and what's going on the rest of their life. But I think the rested part is basically the key to it. I think that should they leave early? Up. I think leaving up is always wonderful. And I must admit that I have been up really big in like a pot limit Omaha hike. By the way, that's my favorite. And that's probably one of the biggest swings because there's so much that can potentially go on because of the 4 cards you have in your hand. Leaving early and leaving up is a good thing, but if it's early and you're up and you feel great and you're in a great place and you keep your game steady, I think that that's a good thing. I think it's good to have a stop spot. Maybe if you're at a certain spot, you say, well, okay, if I tossed off X number of dollars, then that might be the case. I would go ahead and get up. So some people have a top spot. How do you handle that, Al?
Well, I tell my clients all the time, listen, if you're, like you said, rested, you have no appointments, you're not feeling sick, you're not hungry, the table is juicy, and what I mean by juicy, it's you can handle who's there and they're paying, the pots are good, and you're getting good money, good value, and you have no place to go, then you should stay as long as you feel the table hasn't shifted by new people coming in and the dynamics change. Once the dynamics change and you feel a little uncomfortable, maybe two more aggressive players arrive, or it gets so tight that you can't win anything, maybe it's time to get up or take a break or move away from the table. But the one thing I do caution them about is if you've been losing and you go and you win, take the win. Don't stay the extra time. Maybe it is time to quit a little early because psychologically you need to break that downswing that Noodle was talking about earlier. When you get into a downswing, you get into a funk that you're going to the casino. I got $200 to lose rather than I got $200 with me today and I want to double my money, which is a positive attitude when you go. So what I tell people, whether they play online or in live in a casino, is if you've had a series or a string of beats, you need to start taking wins, even if they're small wins. Let's say you played for 3 hours and you're only up $75 and you really wanted to be up 175 to $200. Take the 75 if you're getting a little tired or if you're not tired, and say, you know what, I'm going to go log this, and the next time I go back, I'm going to remember, hey, I won 75 last time. I played my best. I didn't get the cards I wanted, but I didn't go home a loser. I'm a winner. And sometimes you need that to get you on the right track, and then you start stringing them together.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at it. And what one of the first lessons that I learned in 1996 was any win is better than any loss.
That's for sure. The other day I was playing at the table. Honestly, I was playing at a nickel dime. I was hanging out with a few of the players here, showing them a few techniques on it, and sat with $10. And when I got to $21, my goal was to double up in the hour to $20. Then I told them what I have is a stop loss or a stop win rate. So I won another hand. I got up to like $24. So I said, now I'm leaving with $22 of that 24. I'm going to play with that $2.24 and see if I can turn that into more. And so then I turned that into, it was 28. I said, now I'm leaving with $25. I pay myself that I'm leaving, and I give myself a little bit more money to play since I earned it. And then I got up to $33, and I said, okay, I'm taking 28 home. I'm going to play with that 5, and then I got up to 40 something dollars. And so I played for, and I videotaped it. It's on my YouTube channel, Al Spath, 2 words. But I got up over $40, and then I finally quit because I was tired, and it was the end of the session. And on YouTube, I don't like to go more than 2 hours on a video. But I just was showing them that, and once I dropped down to that certain amount I said I was going to leave with, that I was going to call it quits. So I was playing, as some people would say, house money, although my late friend Spath would say, it's not house money when you win it, it's your money.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a good time doing it, and we had a good video. Ronster says that he really enjoyed you coming out. He hopes Drush can get together and hear more from you, and he said he'd love to hear you on Twitch. You're terrific. Noodle says, after Jen Harmon and Duke left the poker limelight, who are the female role models these days in your opinion? I'm a male, but feel women could easily dominate this game if they decided to.
I think you're absolutely right, and I don't know. I don't have, in the game, every now and then you can see who's really cashed.
Oberstat.
Yeah, Oberstat's probably. I still believe she's significant. Um,
And I wouldn't count Jen Harmon. She just went into the
yeah,
Poker Hall of Fame. I wouldn't count Jen Harmon out. She had some very dire medical problems, needing a kidney and everything else. But Jen Harmon's still around. Annie Duke kind of stepped away because of the crap that was properly thrown maybe at her brother. And
yeah, and Selps, you're absolutely
yeah,
right. Um, yeah, Selps. I'm
Phelps
sorry. I'm
is
I'm
very
looking at
good.
your notes.
Yeah, no, that's good.
I'm looking
No,
at the chat.
yeah, Phelps.
And yeah, spelling. I can't spell it either. And, and yeah, she's probably. I still think that Selps is probably one of the biggest role models, and I think that, interestingly enough, she's her sexual orientation is obvious. Her wife um, is apparently female as well, and I think that some women may find that off-putting, and I think that that's unfortunate. It matters not what sexual orientation you have at the poker table. It matters not what sex you are at the poker table, because I believe that the more women who step into the game means that more women will be able to win, because it's a matter of numbers. In the World Series of Poker this year, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think in the main event it was gosh, what was it, 5%? It was very, very low.
Right.
And when you're looking at will a woman win the World Series, where you're looking at the probability based on numbers, how many are competing, how many women compared to how many men. So
Sure.
when you look at a number statistically, it means that a woman is more likely to lose than to win. So uh, the cards really aren't that heavy. Oh, that's funny. And Vanessa Russo, yes, Vanessa's certainly a role model. So, frankly, I'll sit here right now on this day as a Christmas gift to myself and say that I have always envisioned myself as being a, a role model for both men and women in poker. Let's face it, I'm 6'5". Sometimes guys think, oh crap, look at her. So I guess God gave me a body where I'm supposed to be out there in front of people because they're supposed to notice me. And I've always seen myself as being a role model from the very beginning. And granted, I have yet to do some heavy wins that will help build my platform, but I truly see that mind shifting is the most powerful part of my game. Do I have any flaws or any faults in my statistical game? Likely some. Uh, Coaching has actually helped my game more than anything else, because
It
somebody would
does.
want
It
somebody
does.
want to know something, and I'd say, well, here, let me see, how the heck do I fix that? And it has helped me learn the game.
Reinforce.
Yeah, it absolutely is reinforcing. So, who's a role model? I see myself as being one of the biggest role models. And I want to envision that, because I believe that mind shifting is such a powerful part of your game. I really want to affect the world that way. When I was a child, when I was 6 years old, my mother asked me how many children did I want to have, and I said 0. And she said, what? I said, because I'm going to be the mother for millions of people. And that's exactly what I told her when I was 6.
Well, that's a great story. And by the way, tonight there's a $25,000 guarantee that's supposed to be run here on Full Flush Poker, and they've got very few people entered right now. So it's going to be a huge overlay on it. It's going to last around 6 hours. It's going to start at, I believe, 6 o'clock this evening or 5 o'clock this evening Eastern. I have to check the tournament schedule just to let you know, and anybody else that's listening here. This video or this recording will be up on Twitch over at Heartbeat Poker, but it'll also be up on YouTube on my YouTube channel. That's Al Spath with 2 words. And I know Donna's got a YouTube channel, but I don't know if you've had time to work on it lately. But maybe we can work together and do something up there as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I really do need to get some up. The last video that I put up was actually the replay of a hand that I did. I think it was on Full Flush, and I actually did it because I I really wanted to share with people how I look at at the game and what happens, when you take a hit. And some people thought it was great. Some people thought I was an idiot, and that's just fine. People either love me or hate me, and I doubt that there'll be any neutrals out there. So,
Well,
so go ahead.
no, no, that's great. I just wanted to ask you, can I purchase one of the first copies of your book and autograph it to the winner of a tournament that Drush will have in your honor of your book coming out, and we'll probably name it after your book. And we'd like to present that to one of our listeners that plays in that tournament. Would you be inclined to help us out with that?
I will under one condition.
Yes, ma'am. I'm
that
listening.
that you will be an advance reviewer of the book for me.
Absolutely. I did 3 books this month. I just did Alan Schoonmaker's new book, 2 new books. I'm doing Jonathan Little's new book on small stakes poker, which is a Kindle. I'm on page 68 of 77. And as soon as you got yours ready for me to review, just send it to me.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because I'm, one of the biggest flaws that I've had with, and I'll openly share this, and I'm forgiving myself for having this flaw, by the way, but one of the biggest flaws that I've had in writing and frankly in my life is the emergence of my perfection gene. And it has raised its head, and and it has been, I would write something and I go, well, is that good enough? And I go back and I'd rewrite and I'd rewrite it. And I told you I'm at 27,000 words right now for a 40,000 word book. And I think 40,000 is really close to it. It's probably going to be about 43,000. Because I really want it to be something people can really put in their hands. And it's going to be on Kindle as well. And I'll do an audio book for it as well. But that'll take some time to do. But it's that perfection gene that
Yeah.
has raised its head. Because I would go back and I would edit more and do it again and I wouldn't let it set aside and cool. So that's why when I say a, a review and before it's out, I would appreciate honest, direct feedback. If you think something should be tweaked, let me know.
Twerked.
Don't say, "Oh, this is all great." Say, "Okay, this is where you need to, fiddle with it." Think of it from the standpoint of, I want a cool eye, someone that really can look at it from another point of view.
You're asking the right person, and I'll twerk it. uh,
Twerk it. And I want to remind everyone that's listening to go to mindshiftonDemand.com. Just twerk over there. And when you go to that site on your mobile phone, it'll jump up with this little opt-in that says you want a 4-minute mind shift exercise, my signature mind shift exercise. I went through all of my archives and found it in a 4-minute version so that it's me actually talking to my coaching clients live. And so I will give that to you. Just go ahead and opt in. By the way, when you opt in, you're going to be taken to then an ugly page that says gaming and media consultants. Just disregard that and go to your email. It should say, what it should say is gaming and media consultants, by the way, is my company. But it should say, thank you very much. I want to see that you're not a robot. Go to your email and click through and say, yes, I'm a person, and then I'll send you the link. So that's what the system does. They want to double opt in to be sure, because frankly, there were a lot of robots that are opting in to lists these days
that's a
online. And
great
I
offer.
want people. I want people.
That's right. That's a great offer, and I know a lot of people will do that. Just for administrative purposes, everybody, we're going to be ending this broadcast here in just a second when I thank Donna once more, and then I'm going to rebroadcast. I'm going to come back on as soon as I get a table. I'll sit down at a table and play for a little while. So, Donna, once again, I appreciate you taking the time to bring us up to speed on what's going on in your life and how mind shifting can help our lives. And we look forward to the book. I look forward to a review, or if you need me to help with the edit or something, you just contact me. That's fine. Drush, I appreciate you and Samo hosting this on Heartbeat Poker Twitch. And, of course, the big event is on Full Flush tonight, the 25K with Matthias Anderson. He's going to help broadcast that on Heartbeat Poker as well. And I'll be back with another Sunday conversation in the near future where Ed Miller is going to come in and talk about the 18 times in a row he lost at 2-5 when he first went to Vegas and was about to give up poker. And now he's written 10 books. Steve Danneman will be coming on. Matt Savage will be coming on in the upcoming weeks. So we've got plenty of guests, but none as bright and shiny and positive as Donna Blevins is. And Donna, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Al. I'm sending out to you and I'm sending out to everyone listening a big girl hug.
All right, everybody. That'll end it from the Poker Insider. This is Al Spath signing out. Thank you, and I'll be back in about 5 minutes.